I have to admit that I always have a different camera in the back of my head. I'm always paying attention to whether or not this one particular camera is available and how much it costs and whether or not I should jump on it, which is kind of like counter to what I usually say with regards to, you know, I'm good with my equipment. I got the Panasonic S5. I'm happy with it. It serves everything that I need, you know, in terms of my filmmaking. It puts out a beautiful image. It's got all the Filmmaker assist tools that I need. I don't use autofocus, so that doesn't make a difference to me. I don't care about the micro HDMI because I don't use an external monitor. But I have to admit, there is another camera that I look at all the time, and, you know, it's for one particular reason, actually, and it's because of something that I couldn't unsee. Like, I couldn't get it out of my mind, and it was a long time ago. Sometime, maybe about a year and a half ago, maybe even 2 years ago now, that I shot a video, and that dreaded moiré showed up. And up until that point, everything that I had shot looked beautiful on this camera, but suddenly I saw it, and I could never unsee it again. And I'm the person who kind of lives with trauma. You know, like when something bad happens to my body, anytime anything comes even close to that again, I think it's coming back. Like I had vertigo for 3 years, long time ago. I had like a post-concussive syndrome or something like that, and so whenever I never get headaches, but whenever I have any kind of dizziness or anything like that, you know, I'm afraid it's coming back because I carry that trauma with me. And I have childhood trauma from being disconnected from my birth mother. And so I saw this moiré, this aliasing, this shimmery kind of disgustingness. And I do kind of feel like I'm kind of looking over my shoulder a lot of the time. But I kind of got to the point where it didn't matter to me anymore. And I kind of normalized it in a way. You know, like it just didn't make any difference to me. Like if it happened, it happened. I would just deal with it. You know, I would try to see it while I'm shooting and try to eliminate it before I get involved. But if for some reason it shows up, I'll deal with it. You know, I'm going to do everything I can in pre-production, wear the right clothes, make sure I don't do anything that's obvious to bring it on. But if it happens, it happens. I mean, it's the kind of thing where if you say something over and over and over again, or if something outrageous just keeps happening all the time, if something crazy, like completely out of the box, like what you're not used to, even if it's bad, you just kind of get used to it after a while. Like it's like I remember I was living in a building in the Bronx, and it was a really violent building. There was a lot of domestic abuse going on, people yelling and screaming. There were people trying to burn the building down all the time. Like there was a schizophrenic guy in there who was really sick, but he like pushed a woman down the steps one day. It was a 5-story walk up, and he literally tried to burn the building down twice. But he was there for so long, and shit like this happened like every day that it kind of got to the point where you got used to it, you know? And it's like living in a neighborhood where there's a lot of violence or a lot of crime or whatever. After a while, it's your neighborhood. You're just used to it. That's just the way it is. And at some point I decided I didn't want to be used to that anymore. And that's why I moved. And it's the same kind of thing. Like if you have something going on with your gear or whatever, if you get used to it, it's just normal. It doesn't matter anymore. And I'm not saying that's the case with the moiré because it doesn't come often at all, but I'm just saying if we normalize something like for example, if I'm always looking over my shoulder, I just get used to it, you know, that's not a good way to work. So I'm always looking at the Panasonic S1h, and it's got a full-size HDMI, which I don't care about really, but I guess that's cool. It's got open gate, which doesn't really make a difference to me, to be honest with you. And I kind of have open gate with the S5 because I could put the S5 in anamorphic mode, without an anamorphic lens, and it uses the full 4x3 of the sensor, or almost the full almost the full sensor. And like I've used that mode before, and it actually does open the sensor way up. It gives me much more room. So yeah, it's not official open gate, but it's close enough for me. And it served me well when I used it on a short film that I shot for somebody. I needed to get more height in a particular shot, and I didn't want to like move so far back, and I was really having problems composing the shot, and I put it in anamorphic mode, and it fixed it right on the spot. So the S5 does kind of do that. But I am still thinking about moiré a lot. Even though I don't have it, and I haven't had it for over a year and a half, and it's probably ridiculous of me to even thinking about that. I do. The S1H is a Netflix-approved camera, which means it's got everything anybody would need to make a movie. I mean, Netflix approved doesn't really mean anything, and if you have a project that Netflix really wants, they're not going to not take it because you didn't shoot it on one of their cameras. But if they pay you to make a film, you're going to have to use a Netflix-approved camera, and it's better if you use one if your target is Netflix, obviously. Do everything in your power to appease them. The S1H has one thing that draws me to it. And I think anybody who's a real filmmaker who really knows cameras already knows what I'm talking about. I mean, it doesn't have it's got the same autofocus that this camera has. So, and again, I don't care about that anyway. The cool thing about if I got an S1H, I could use all the same lenses. It's a full frame L mount, same thing as my S5, same company. So I wouldn't have to go through any changes. I would just have a bigger body, which is an advantage or a disadvantage depending upon how you look at it. It's an advantage for your stabilization. It's a heavier body. It's got a better grip, but it's heavier. I like walking around with the S5. It's light. So there's that. Shoots 6K, and it does some other. It's got more codecs. It's got all intra codecs that this one doesn't have, but I don't care about that. And as a matter of fact, I think that that's all. Like image quality, I think is a sham. I think it's bullshit. Like I'm shooting right now in 1080. Does it look any worse than anything else I shoot? I mean, as long as I'm lit properly, it's going to look fine. As long as I compose the shot, I'm shooting at a 4:3 aspect ratio. I'm trying to make it look a little bit more interesting. Maybe I have too much darkness on this side. Maybe I should have had the light all the way to the edge. But, I thought it looked interesting like this. But it's 1080. I can make a movie with 1080. People lust over the old Blackmagic OG. It shoots 1080. There are a lot of like legendary cinema cameras that only shoot 1080. Most of what you watch on TV is in 1080. I mean, 1080 is beautiful as long as you know what you're doing. As long as you're lit properly, as long as you compose properly, as long as you work with your colors. You never would have known if I didn't just tell you that. But I'm doing it because of this video. Just to say that that's not why I'm thinking about getting an S1H. It's the optical low-pass filter. Optical low-pass filter makes the chance that you're going to see moiré go way, way down. Like the percentage of it happening is like chances of that occurring again, much, much less. Because that's what the optical low-pass filter is made for. And it also adds to the fact that it's a very cinematic image. It makes it a little bit softer. I mean, it's still sharp, but it just makes it look more consistent in terms of the rollover from the highlights to the shadows. It's a legendary camera. And the reason I'm thinking about it all the time is because when it came out, it was like well over $4,000. And now I see it all the time for less than $1,700. I mean, you could get it brand new at B&H, Adorama, places like that for $2,000. That's like less than half of what it was when it came out. And you could find them on. I just saw somebody selling 7 brand new S1Hs. They were overstocks for $14.95 a piece. That's what made me think about it. Like, maybe I should jump on it, you know, but I'm not, I don't really, I'm going to wait until I have some disposable money. And when I have disposable money, I am going to buy it. Because right now, I have a Panasonic GH5 as a backup to my Panasonic S5. And the GH5 is a micro four thirds camera, which means I only have two really cheap lenses for it, and both lenses look great. And I love the GH5, it looks incredible. But if I really want to match this camera, and if I really want to be able to use both cameras to their full potential, like if I want to be shooting anamorphic, for example, and I want to use one anamorphic lens on this camera, and I want to use an anamorphic lens, if I have an S1H, I could do that. I can't do that on the GH5 unless I invest in more lenses. And I'm not going to invest in micro four thirds lenses unless I'm going micro four thirds. I'm not going to spend that money. I'm just not going to do that. It doesn't make sense. I'm going to invest in something where it makes sense. Like if something, God forbid, happens to my camera or whatever, I want to be in a system where I can just use all my lenses no matter what I do in terms of switching cameras if I have to do that. I don't want to be split up with micro four thirds lenses and full frame lenses. It doesn't really make sense. It's like living in the middle of something without committing to it. So I'm grateful to have the GH5 as a backup, and I can match it with the S5 fine. But if I want to have the full potential, I could either get another S5, which would cost me about somewhere between $600-700 for a really good one, used. Or I can get an S1H for like probably, by the time I buy it, it'll probably be around $1,400, maybe less. You know, if they come out with the S1H Mark II, who knows? It'll probably be around $1,000 at that point. I mean, you can get a GH5S, which is a legendary camera, also with an optical low-pass filter, but micro four thirds for $600 or $700 now. That was like a $2,500 camera, I think, when it came out, $2,200, something like that. And the truth is, if you get any camera made since, say, 2007, when the GH5 came out, you can make a Hollywood film. And even if you shoot in 1080, which I'm shooting in now, did I mention that? I did. So, yeah, just for the optical low-pass filter, because I'll have less chance of getting moiré, if I can get it at a really cheap price when I have some disposable money, I'll do that. Maybe. But it is fun to think about. But I don't need it. And trust me, I love my Panasonic S5. And the thing about me is that I'm just, I guess, being transparent that I do think about this stuff sometimes. But the difference between me and most of you, and you know this is true, is that while I think about this stuff sometimes, I'm making feature films at the same time, all by myself. Like, I'm doing the work. I'm writing scripts. I'm memorizing scripts. I'm working on my lighting. I'm working on my composition. I'm making a movie. I'm going into festivals. I'm doing the actual work. I'm either doing my own score or working with the amazing Steve Peckman, who's doing the score for me. Like, I'm doing the work while I'm thinking of this. Don't get caught up thinking about this kind of stuff and not do the work. Don't be thinking about another camera or upgrading or specs, you know, like this has all eye and this only has, you know, long GOP, and like, don't even think about that stuff if you're not doing the work. If you have a camera, any camera, do the work. Do the work before you even think about any of that stuff. It's like, you know, yeah, I think about it. I probably shouldn't really think about it because I don't need it, but at least it's not stopping me from doing what I got to do to make movies. I just won the Manhattan Film Festival. I got a Best Coming of Age Feature Film. My first film, The Center of Distance, I got so many awards. And so while I'm thinking about all this stuff, I'm still doing work. And that's the most important thing. When you get these cameras, use them. If I get an S1H, trust me, I will squeeze every drop out of that camera. I will use it. I will use it and I will abuse it, and I will not be easy on it. I beat the crap out of my cameras because I'm out there doing it, taking risks, you know, just doing anything to get the shot. And if something happens to the camera, I mean, I'm not trying to have anything happen to my camera, but if something happens, it's because I got the shot. You know, I'm responsible. I have warranties and stuff like that, so I'm not worried about it. So yeah, I do think about it from time to time. And you know what? I hope the S1H2 comes out soon. I'm glad the S5 2X is epic and massive. I'm happy that the GH7 is incredible, because while all these cameras come out and they all linger around that $2,000 range, or maybe a S1H Mark II or this new S1R, whatever, VZ trillion 39, whatever, whenever that comes out for Lumix, maybe it's going to be 2,500, something like that. I'm happy, because then the S1H is going down, down, down in price. And I will jump on one eventually. And I'll get it for $900 or something like that. And I will have the most incredible camera. The Panasonic S1H is a ridiculous creative tool. I mean, if I really did want to max out the potential of it, I could do so much with that camera. It's probably the best mirrorless camera, short of any real cinema camera on the market. You know, it's got more capability than an FX3 or an A7S3 or any of the Nikon cameras, other than autofocus. That's the only thing it doesn't have. But otherwise, it matches up against anything. It's so dope. And you could add the XLR to it as well, have great audio. So that's what I'm thinking about. That's where I'm at with that. But in the meantime, I'm just doing the work. And hopefully I'll continue to avoid moiré, M-O-I-R-E. I don't know how to pronounce it. Moiré. Aliasing. Optical low pass filter. I almost had an optical low pass filter put into my S5, but I was like, really? Am I going to spend $600? I could buy a brand new S5 for $600. I didn't see any sense in doing that. I said, you know what? Wait. You know, if you have some disposable money, do some gigs, and then just get an S1H. You know, it's like, it's going to be around $1,000. It's not going to destroy me. You know, I'm not talking about spending $4,000 on a FX3. You know, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about even spending $2,000. I'm talking about spending like $1,000, maybe less, by the time I do it. So that's what I'm thinking about. See what happens. Please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Please consider becoming a part of my Patreon. I would appreciate that so much. You would be my own personal superhero, and that's it.